Bonjour mes élèves. I am going to talk to you right now about Impressionism. So, modern art was born in France in the 1870s. It was a new way of painting. Before the Impressionists, all the painters were very traditional. They only painted as things were. They were very much realists. There was not imagination. There was only attention to detail of reality. And form was very essential. Form. But then the Impressionists came along, and they were more interested in color and the effects of light on the objects that were represented in their paintings. So instead of drawing battles or heroes, they would draw landscapes where you could see the light being reflected. They liked to draw daily life, friends, and above all, the landscapes and the nature. And they worked in the open air more than in studios because they liked nature. However, at the beginning, they were not well received. They were more interested in, the color and nature, whereas everyone around them had been very involved and very wanting the traditional. They were not allowed to show their paintings in public because it was just such a crazy thing at the time. So what they did is they would show their paintings at the home of their friends. And there were many expositions of Impressionist art for a while, and just nobody wanted to receive them well. So they found people were just shocked by their senses, and they could not get over it. But little by little, art critics began to understand this importance of the revolution that the Impressionists were doing. Some people finally began to buy their work, and now many of the Impressionist paintings are very popular and are in many museums. Some of the most popular ones are Monet, Manet, Cézanne, Renoir. There's also two females that were very popular, Berthe Morisot and an American, Mary Cassatt. In fact, Mary Cassatt had gone to Paris to study art, and she brought it back with her, which in so doing made it go around the world. So, let's talk a little bit about the Impressionist painters themselves. One of them that I forgot to mention a moment ago was Degas. Degas, looks like Degas. He was the son of a banker. His family was very wealthy. His mother was from New Orleans. He studied law, but he abandoned his study of law to be a painter and a sculptor. His favorite subjects for his art were opera and opera dancers, cafe scenes, as well as horses. Manet, Edouard Manet, wanted to become a naval officer, but after he took a trip to Brazil, he decided he didn't really want to do that, and he chose to paint instead. His works had just very bold and violent colors in them, which provoked a lot of criticism and hostility. But the interest of some young and at the time unknown artists were piqued, and Manet became one of the very first, if not the first, real Impressionist painter. And he painted all sorts of things: landscapes, friends, daily life, a lot of different subjects. There is a famous painting in your book, Le Fifre, the fife, of a young boy in the army who's playing the fife, And it's interesting because when he painted it, it was rejected, right? Because they didn't like the Impressionists at first. But Émile Zola wrote an article that praised the beauty and simplicity of his piece. And he said, La place de Monet est marquée au Louvre. And he was right. Renoir began with paintings of storefronts, cafes. He was the one. Renoir went to l'École des Beaux-Arts, the School of Good Arts, Beautiful Arts, which is a very famous school in Paris. He loved warm colors. And most of the time, his subjects in his drawings were children, especially girls. Sometimes he had women, as well as flowers and scenes of popular cafes and balls. Berthe Morisot, at a young age, she became interested in painting. As people at that time often did, she began by copying the paintings at the museums at the Louvre. But there she met Monet. Remember, we mentioned him a moment ago, one of the first ones. And she became an Impressionist as well. She loved to use light colors, but mostly she painted flowers and landscapes, rural life scenes, and young girls. In fact, Monet made several paintings of her. Now, one last person to talk about. Claude Monet, probably the most famous painter, at least Impressionist painter. And one painting that he did was Impression, Soleil Levant. He was fascinated by the effects of light and used fundamental colors to show the reflections of the light in his works. And this is shown very well in this piece, as you can see in your book. But he invented a system where he would use just little spots of paint here and there, and until the painting was finished. He would paint and repaint the same scenes over and over. And he would do this because he would paint the same thing, but a little bit different lighting, so each painting was different. For example, he painted the Cathedral of Rouen, which is where Joan of Arc was, and he painted it 40 times, but each one in a little bit different light. He was a very poor man his whole life until his paintings became popular, and he was able to live at Giverny in Normandy, which isn't too far from Paris, and he created a superb garden in front of his house with all sorts of plants and flowers, which greatly inspired his paintings, and many other painters would come here as well. But sadly, near the end of his life, he became blind and was unable to continue to paint. After he died, his house and garden were abandoned. However, a rich American fixed it up, so it is still a beautiful place to go now, and many visitors will come there every year. So that is a somewhat brief summary of Impressionism that will be able to help you in your homework and your work. I hope it impressed you. Thank you.